Okay, let's go ahead and let's get started. Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for STEAM Power Hour. We're so excited to have you all with us, and so excited to share these great authors with you as well as STEAM titles. My name is Tiffany Bickle, and I am a Literacy Accounts Manager here at Booksource. And I'm just here to tell you a little bit about Booksource, and then we'll get started. I do want to let you know that we are recording this event, and we'll be more than happy to share the recording with you in the coming days. So look for that. All right, let's go. So Booksource is a family-owned, family-first company. Since 1974, we've been committed to supporting literacy. We work with schools, districts, and teachers all across the country, and we always try to make it as easy as possible to get books in the hands of students. No matter where they are reading, whether it's at home, whether it's in the classroom, we want to make sure that we have the latest and the greatest and most engaging titles to ensure that there really is something out there for each student's need. We want to make sure that all of our students are inspired readers, and we know how important it is to make sure that books can help teach students about the world and also themselves. So we make sure that our offering reflects our students and allows them that experience of learning more about the world through what they read. So as I said, I'm one of the literacy accounts managers here. This is a picture that represents our team. So we're all here along with your local sales consultants, in which we know many of you were actually invited by them to participate in this event tonight to help support you. Some of the things that we can do for you is we can answer questions and provide insights for you in regards to great books and collections that you might want to add to your classroom. We also can help build classroom libraries for you. Isn't that amazing? And we work with any budget, no matter how big or how small. We're here to support you. So we're going to talk a little bit more about some of our collections that we're offering and how we can support you at the end of our presentation. We'll also share information on how you can connect with your literacy account manager team. Now, I know that you're probably at the point where we're like, okay, will you please stop talking and then we can get to the event. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it all over to Mitch, who is going to introduce our lovely authors and our event tonight and really get things started.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you, Tiffany. I'm here to get the event started. So today we have a group of wonderful authors who I'm very excited to speak with. We'll be talking with them about their new books. We'll be talking with them about education in the STEAM world right now and how their books may fit into that. We'll make some connections and we'll talk about their history as authors. Feel free during this presentation or this panel discussion to send questions through the chat. There will be some question and answer during the session, but most of that will be after the session as well. Feel free to send it anytime. If we think there's an appropriate time to answer that question, we'll go ahead and do so. So without further ado, today we have Kathleen Doherty, author of The Thingity-Jig, Jennifer Swanson, author of Save the Crash Test Dummies, and Dani Schnitzler, author of New and Shrew. And Suzanne Slade was also supposed to join us today. Unfortunately, she had a family emergency, so she had to step out. She was kind enough to send us a video of her new book and an introduction. And if I may say, the video is very impressive on such short notice. Suzanne is very talented. So we will begin with her video and then from there, jump into our discussion.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Slade, and I am thrilled to be part of this Booksource event. And I'm the author of Mars Is, Stark Slope, Silvery Snow, and Startling Surprises that just released April 1st, and it contains the most amazing photos of Mars you have ever seen. And I love to research and write about space because I'm a mechanical engineer and I used to work on rockets. Before becoming an author, I worked on Delta and Titan rockets and the Delta Star spacecraft at McDonnell Douglas in California. The amazing photos in Mars Is were taken by a camera called HiRise. HiRISE is the most powerful camera ever sent to another planet. HiRISE is riding on a spacecraft called MRO. It's been orbiting Mars for 15 years and has taken over 69,000 photos. Mars contains many of these gorgeous pictures, including Mars' colossal craters, slabs of carbon dioxide ice, sandy deserts, colorful canyons, mighty mesas, and much more. With the recent landing of the Perseverance rover on Mars, more people than ever are interested in Mars, and the lyrical text in Mars is perfect for young readers, plus the sidebars and several back matter pages share even more fascinating facts. I hope you enjoy exploring Mars with Mars Is. I also wrote Countdown, 2,979 Days to the Moon. It's a middle grade, fully illustrated novel in verse which shares the fascinating Apollo missions 1 through 10 leading up to Apollo 11, our first moon landing. I also wanted to share a few fun space resources that your students might enjoy. The Mars Photo Booth, where you can take a picture of yourself on Mars, and the free NASA Space Selfie app, where you can create a picture of yourself soaring through space. And if you're interested in more book or space resources, be sure to check out my website, SuzanneSlade.com. Click Book Resources to find all book enrichment activities, such as videos and more. Then click Space Resources to find the 2 space selfie apps I just mentioned. And before I go, I just want to take a second to personally thank all of you educators and librarians, especially during these difficult times, for inspiring our young readers to pick up a book and read. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, for sending that in. And also, before we continue, I'd like to thank again Peachtree Publishing for being the engine behind today's STEAM Power Hour. They were able to come to us with the idea. They brought the authors in, and I'm very thankful to them for that. So without further ado, we will get to the authors themselves. We will have them introduce. I'll go down in the order of my screen here. So Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe the book we'll be focusing on today?
Yeah, Suzanne's a tough one to follow. So hi everybody, my name is Jennifer Swanson. I'm the author of about, I think 45 books about STEM and STEAM, and I'm the author of Save the Crash Test Dummies. And yes, that's how you have to say it every time, right? So this book was so much fun to write, and to give you a little bit of my background, I have loved science since I was a little kid. I started a science club in my garage when I was 7. But how did I start loving cars? I started thinking about that this morning. So when I was young, my brothers were in Boy Scouts. Anybody remember the Pinewood Derby cars? And so my brothers got to make those every year and race them. And, back then girls didn't do that, and except my father very much encouraged me to do that. So I would make my own car every year, and we would race it down all the different things. And of course I would race my brother's cars, right? And yes, I did win, not always, but sometimes. So that's kind of where I came from to write this book. And also my whole love of science I've carried through my whole life. My background is I graduated from the United States Naval Academy with a degree in chemistry. I have a master's degree in K-8 science education, and I'm a middle school science teacher. So kudos to all the teachers out there. You know, what you guys are going through right now is very difficult teaching, and especially keeping kids excited about STEM. So I'm excited to be here for Steam Power. They were like, a Steam Power Hour books? Yes, count me in. So thanks for having me.
Of course, we're very happy to have you here. I was in the Boy Scouts. The Pinewood Derby are some of my fondest memories. So yeah, thank you for that. Next, how about Kathleen? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone, and happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all of you. I hope you had a wonderful week. And teachers really have one of the hardest professions in the world. So I did it for 38 years. I retired after 38 years. If you're trying to figure out how old I am, you got to realize I started when I was 14. I am the author of this Peachtree book, The Thingity-Jig. This came out April 1st. And I share it with Christina Litton. She's the illustrator. And it's been getting wonderful reviews. It got a star review from Kirkus. I'll read what Kirkus said. Doherty's joyous, inventive, action-packed language begs to be shouted out loud. Little readers might want to create their own Thingity-Jigs, a delightful, rollicking, joyous ride. It's basically a book about a little bear who finds, he wanders off into Peopletown and finds a Thingity-Jig, which happens to be a discarded couch. He is determined to bring it home. The story mirrors The Little Red Hen. His friends won't help him bring home the Thingity-Jig, so he invents all kinds of simple machines to bring home his precious Thingity-Jig. And that's what the story is about on the surface. Beneath that surface, underneath, it's really about perseverance, kindness, and sharing. I got the idea to write the Thingity-Jig from taking a walk in my neighborhood and seeing a discarded couch on the curb. And I remembered when I was a little kid jumping up and down on my parents' couch when they weren't looking. And then I started to play what if a little cub found that couch and wanted to play with it and wanted to keep it. My teaching credentials, I have a master's in reading, so I was a reading specialist in an elementary school. I hold an EDS degree in curriculum and instruction, and I loved teaching, but it was time to retire after 38 years. And I wrote for Highlights magazine for years, the 3 different Highlights magazines, and then decided I wanted to write picture books. So that is about it for me.
Thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, I think your book is gorgeous and fun. I agree with Kirkus' review wholeheartedly. And that question, what if, definitely at the heart of so many great things that we invent in the scientific community in general. So I love that. Dani, please introduce your book and yourself for us.
Hello, I'm Dani Schnitzlein. I had a first, a second, and a 4th place Pinewood Derby car when I was in the Boy Scouts. I've always been interested in science. As a little kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist. I was nuts about dinosaurs. And my dad was a scientist. He was a neuroanatomist, and he made the first atlas for the MRI for the human brain. And he used to pay me to sit in the MRI when they didn't have the scan that they needed. So my brain is in that book, even though they don't use it anymore. I think it's outdated. It's in the abnormal section, I think, of the the brains. Anyway, so my background, I started out working in television, making commercials as a writer and editor, video editor, film editor. And then I worked my way into working for children's educational television as a script writer and a songwriter. And I still do that a little bit. I worked on a show that teaches Spanish, a show that teaches Japanese. And then I've worked for many years on a show called Organ Wise Guys that teaches health and like human physiology stuff. And I wrote 4 songs for them last year. I have fun doing that, but I'm also a picture book author. Probably my most famous picture book is The Monster Who Ate My Peas. And my most recent one is New and Shrew. And this is the story of 2 friends who they both dream of getting these diamonds that are on the other side of the river, but the river is turbulent and has lots of crocodiles in it. And then New kind of, he dreams about it more than he really does anything about it. So like, for instance, at night, he dreamed of his golden bicycle that he was gonna make with the money from the diamonds, while Shrew is off here taking New's idea and then attaching a bicycle chain to the paddle wheel in the boat that he's making. So every night he's doing something to kind of make his boat more of a boat, and using New's ideas to do that. So it's kind of a right brain, left brain story. I've always liked African and Caribbean folk tales, and I kind of wanted it to have that flavor. I love those stories because every word is necessary. Like there's no extra words in there, so you really have to pare down your words to make it right. And I was very honored because it got chosen to be one of the best STEM books of 2021, and no one was more surprised than me when that happened, because I was not trying for that, and I didn't even know that existed. My editor said that she was aware of it, and so maybe that helped. Anyway, thanks for letting me be here today, and I'll have fun answering more questions and things later. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Dani. And perfect segue, I believe. I wanted to ask you all first about STEM books. I know that there are some previous thought processes about those, and STEM can be kind of a slow subject sometime, and you all incorporated humor into your books, and I love that. But when you wrote these books, were you thinking specifically of STEM? Jennifer, I know that you're involved heavily in the STEM industry. You have STEM Tuesday sometimes that you contribute to. So, but we'll begin on the other end. Kathleen, did you specifically think about STEM and the classroom perhaps when you were writing this book?
Well, I had Bear do a lot of building and making and creating. And I could show a picture or two. Bear makes a lifty-uppity, and he makes a roly-rumpity. There's a lot of humor with the words. And the STEM part of this book would be introducing, simple machines. He uses a lot of simple machines. He finds these things in Peopletown, and he does a lot of upcycling. Let's see what else. Then he gets stuck in the mud. The illustration.
Yeah, when I was reading this, it did jump out to me, the simple machines aspect, and how in a classroom that compares so well with, books on pulleys, books on levers,
Yes.
and things like that.
Yes, I don't know if this would be the right time to hold up some simple machine books.
Sure, yeah, if you have some to share, please.
I do. Okay, simple machines, inclined planes. These are all going to be on a handout later. All of these books will be named. How do seesaws go up and down? Wheel and axle. Levers and pulleys. Motors and gears. I used to write for Pearson Ink. I used to write standardized test items for the Common Core, according to the Common Core standards. And we would always match a nonfiction piece of literature with fiction. So, and that's the way testing is going nowadays, not not how when I was in the classroom. It's the way to incorporate and reach all kids, fiction and nonfiction, by pairing together. So what my book how it can be used is to compare. A teacher could use a Venn diagram to compare machines, simple machines, or compare how Bear invented the pushy poppity, compare Bear's different contraptions that he makes. I think there's math in my book, there's shapes. A teacher could show the different shapes and have students identify the shapes in the book. There's science also, not only the simple machines, but there's hearing and touch sensory words. And those words could be charted, like clink, clank, huff, groan. Those would be hearing. And then touch, tap, poke, smack, wallop. So I think these Peachtree books can be used in many ways in the classroom.
I agree with you. Yeah, thank you so much for introducing that. For all the teachers and administration at home, I'd just like to reiterate what Kathleen was saying. We will be following up with a piece after this interview that pairs all the titles you hear about today with fiction and nonfiction, whatever the book is, the vice versa of that. So yeah, look out for that. Some great resources that Suzanne Slade also mentioned in her video. There's going to be a lot of great resources. And if you'd like to come away with this with, a package or a book list that you can inject directly into a classroom, that's a great way to do it. So yeah, Kathleen, going to the other fiction title today, Dani, you said that you weren't thinking about STEM at all when you wrote this book. What's your reaction now that it's been accepted by the STEM community?
I'm very excited and very honored. I think it's really fun, and I'm glad I got to squeak in and and be part of this discussion. Since I don't write technically, science or STEAM books, but I guess I do. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think you mentioned before this interview that some great pairings may be African animals, including the Gnu and the Shrew, and you can also pair it with like boat building and inventor type stuff books.
That's right. Yeah, I was thinking like topics could be like inventions or inventors, creativity, African animals, how to build a boat, or how hot air balloons work. And some of the titles that are in Booksource are I Use Simple Machines by Buffy Silverman, Where is the Serengeti by Nico Medina, where you can learn about wildebeests and other animals of the Serengeti, and Building Boats That Float by Marnie Ventura. And I believe, like you said, all these are going to be listed later on a handout. So those are things that you could connect with Gnu and Shrew.
There will be. How to Build a Boat especially, I thought was a fun one. I was reading through that a bit, and it made me crave summer a bit and to go build boats. And so Jennifer, you've been in the STEM community for a while, and like you said, you're 40 or 45 books in. How do you choose your next book? Like when you're exploring STEM, there are so many roots here. So what's your inspiration?
So I, just like I'm still 9 years old in my head. And so I'm still curious about the world, and I just look around and see things and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I have to figure out why that works or how that works. I used to ask my mom that, why does this happen? How does this work? And she used to always point me to World Book encyclopedias. Anybody remember those? Anybody have those? Yes, we did. But those books were great for their knowledge, but of course they don't compare with the nonfiction that we get to write today. So we get to come at things that are really amazingly cool. And so, the Save the Crash Test Dummies book, where this came from is I actually had written a book for an educational publisher, and I had learned all about the self-driving car, and I became obsessed with the self-driving car. I was like, I even emailed Google and I was like, hey, I want to write a book about it. Can I come out there and tour? Yeah, nothing. I'm still waiting for a response to that email. They were just kind of like, no. But the thing is, as teachers, you know that if you are going to tell kids, hey, here's this cool book about the self-driving car, they're going to be like, yeah, what? Why would I want to read that? But if you take the day in the life of a crash test dummy and how they have helped us, they do the history of car safety to bring us to a self-driving car, all of a sudden you have their interest. So that's what I was able to do with this, because you show them, look, there's the crash test dummy family, and look, let's see if I can do it right. There's the crash test dog right there, the crash test dummy family and dog. So this book has a lot of that in there. It comes, if you look at all of my STEM and STEAM books, I come at them from very, I don't want to say weird, but different angles, right? And that's what I was so thrilled that Peachtree loved this book. My editor was Kathleen Smith, and it was, you know, it's always good when you're pitching to an editor and she laughs when you say your title, right? Because that's what you're going for. She was great, and Peachtree really worked with me with this book. So we incorporate a lot of history. So there's actually literal pictures of old time cars. Like, great, let's see if I can get this right. There we go. So that is the very first bumper. It was a cow catcher. And people, the idea was that if you hit a person, you would scoop them up into the net in front of you. Now, how many of you would volunteer to do that? So, you know, exactly. So all of this book can be used in so many different ways. Of course, physics, you know, forces of motion, Newton's laws, but you could pair it with the Thingity-Jig, right? I mean, you're teaching kids all the same types of things. You could pair it with practically any science book or any kind of fiction book where the kids are invited to think of their own, just go outside their box and create things. And can I just say that I was so excited. This is the first time I had an illustrator for any of my books. This is Tamika Groom's amazing illustration of the crash test dummy. And the coolest thing about it is she's also a civil engineer. So I was like, not only did I get an illustrator, but I also got a cool engineer. So that's kind of where I get all of my ideas. It's just from experience things, because I tell kids all the time, science is all around you. All you have to do is look.
Definitely true. So your illustrator, Tamika Grooms, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, I'm really interested in all of your books and how the relationship between the illustrations and the design team happened between you writing it and then it turning into a complete book. So Jennifer, we'll start with you. Tamika Grooms, in your book, there's such a great balance, I think, of the old-timey pictures and then the diagrams and then Tamika's drawn images.
Like, let's see if you could see, look at this cool drawing. He's like, oof, he's all scrunched up, which is his day. Yeah.
Yeah, the drawn images have this inherent humor just because of how absurd the crash test dummy is. So how was that process for you working with Tamika, or how involved was that?
So it wasn't at all. Basically, so it depends. When you're doing a book, sometimes the author just writes the text and then the editor handles the art and then they marry it together. Sometimes the author gets to give a little bit of back and forth with the illustrator. It just really depends on kind of how the publishing works. For this case, I hadn't seen any of the illustrations that she did. And it was actually really funny because when my editor, Kathleen Smith, emailed them to me once they were done, I was like on a trip we were driving down to Orlando with my father, and we were at a rest stop, and I like pull out my phone and I'm trying to see this picture, right? And all of a sudden it comes out and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. Look. And my husband and my dad are kind of like, yeah, it's okay. And I was like, oh, I need my friends, my author friends behind me, because she did such an amazing job of capturing the humor that I had really hoped to put in my text. So when you read the book, I just think her illustrations just give it a whole nother dimension. And I'm just very lucky. I loved every single one of they sent. I had no problems with any. In fact, I was like, can we put more in the book?
Yeah, the illustrations along with the old-timey pictures was such a great dynamic, I thought.
It is, yeah.
Dani, So your illustrator is Romanian, Anka Sandu, I believe, and my partner is Romanian, and she was very keen to hear about Anka. So do you have any stories, or what was your experience going through the illustration and design process?
It was a great experience all the way through. On all my books with Peachtree, they've usually shown me an illustrator and said, "What do you think about this person for illustrating?" And so they told me about Anka, and for like one of my books, I think we went through 3 or 4 people, but Kathy Landwehr showed me Anka's stuff, and I just said, "This is great. She's going to be great." I looked at her website, and I really liked her pencil drawings. And when I had seen some of her finished illustrations, I felt like some of the mark making and that stuff, which was so fun, was taken away. So I kind of urged her to keep that in the book, and she did. And she told me later that I actually kind of changed her style, that now she does more of that and puts more pencil shading and stuff into it. And I love the humor that she added to it. Like when I saw New taking a nap, he's just like face down in the dirt. Like that made me laugh out loud the first time that I saw that sketch. She was born in Romania. Now she lives in Portland. She got married, so she has a different last name, but she's keeping Sandu as her illustrator name. And she was just a joy to work with all the way through. I don't know what else to tell you about that. I guess that's it.
No, that's good. I love it. I'm always interested in the marrying between art and science. And so I believe these illustrators all did a great job, not only being expressive, but expressing your words and the actions and science involved there. Kathleen, yeah, so the Thingity-Jig, all these little items and these things and these bobbits and boobits, like I think your illustrator did a great job expressing those. Christina Litton, I believe.
Yes.
I especially love all these gorgeous blues and oranges.
Yeah.
Were you involved in that process?
She's from England, and of course, being a reading specialist, I have a teacher's guide on my website, KathleenDohertyAuthor.com, and also Peachtree features my teacher's guide. But this is just adorable when Bear finds his treasure, his little Thingity-Jig. And I used a lot of rhythm and a lot of onomatopoeia. The Thingity-Jig was a springy thing, a bouncy thing, a sit on it, hop on it, jump on it thing. I used to use picture books in all the classrooms as high as 6th grade in my elementary school. And I would use them to get the kids to use higher level thinking skills. So for example, when you come to the last page in the Thingity-Jig, little Bear is so tired from making all his contraptions and bringing home the Thingity-Jig, he falls asleep. So how I would use this page would be to ask kids to evaluate why did Bear fall asleep? Why isn't he jumping on the Thingity-Jig like all his friends did when he brought it back? And I'd use it to have kids analyze. Did Bear make a good contraption? Should he have tried something else? What else could he have tried? This page is just adorable with the lever. And I just like how you can use higher level thinking skills. Kids can create their own Thingity-Jig. They can evaluate, they can analyze. You can use a Venn diagram. I was always for, in the classroom, because you don't have a lot of time. So you have to address those state standards. I taught in Illinois. You have to address the state standards, and it just saved time to incorporate both nonfiction and fiction and hit the same state standard. Who, what, why, where, and when can be applied to nonfiction and fiction. Any other questions did you have for me?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, you mentioned the onomatopoeia used in your book. I love that. And then in the book, as you're reading it, I believe that the pages give the onomatopoeia and the words space to breathe. And I really love
Yes.
that. So it gives the readers and the teachers time to move through and really interact with the book. So when you were writing it and you were using this expressive language, were you gearing that towards specific readers? Did you have an audience in mind?
Well, because I wrote poetry for years, I probably have sold over 20 poems to Highlights, and they were published in their various Highlights magazines. So I tend to write with rhythm and some rhyme. It does not have a lot of rhyme. I've never written a rhyming picture book, but there's a lot of rhythm, and I just love language. I love playing with words. You know, smackety smack womp, bingity bing boing. That's what's in here. I tend to talk like that as an adult, just like Jennifer. You know, the body is old, but inside is this little 5-year-old who, you know, it's it's just so much fun when you find out the little child next door sleeps with this book. It's only been out. I have a little 4-year-old next door. The child sleeps with this book. It takes it to bed.
That.
When you hear something like that, how you have touched a child, and as a reading specialist, I want kids to get hooked on books. I rather them have a book in their hand than a video game. So
I love that.
It's just a joy.
Yeah, your rhyming schemes and your rhythm, I thought that was really fun to read. I saw a lot of that also in Danny's book. Not, you know, rhyming explicitly, but there was definitely a rhythm in there, and it really flows you through the book. Dani, when you were writing yours, you know, did you have an audience in mind? And I guess more than that, like, what would be your dream to walk into, see someone reading your book? How would they take that, explore that, and continue?
Let's see, what was the first question?
The first question was, you know, what was your audience? And then in a really dreamlike state, if you could walk in on somebody, you know, reading your book and being inspired by that, you know, what activity would they be, you know, doing afterward or going to explore?
Gosh. I don't know.
That was a meandering question, but did you write this for kids is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I did write it for kids. I'm known as a rhyming author, and I guess I wanted to do something different. I wanted to write in prose. All my first 3 books are written in rhyme, and so I wanted to kind of challenge myself to do something different. Also, publishers are, I don't know if people know this, but Peachtree is pretty open, but other publishers are not really open to rhyming picture books anymore. There's kind of a snobbery, kind of they turn their nose up at it a lot in other publishers. So I was, you know, trying to write something that was maybe more of the market would want, if that makes sense. And
it does make sense. You always have to write, if not the market, then at least the trends maybe, and their own, you know, experience.
And I want to add, as I was writing it, usually when I'm writing my books, I find out that there's a message in the book that I was trying to get to myself. And in this book, I realized there was a coded message that my subconscious mind was trying to tell my conscious mind. And that's because I'm more like new, I'm more like a dreamer, and I love to think up ideas. Like, I can think up ideas all day long, but I'm not always good at like that daily grind and bringing a project to its end. So that was like the Shrew part of my brain, who is, you know, Shrew is good at that stuff, trying to get through to the new part of my brain. And I realized that about half, you know, after I had written the story, like, oh, this story is for me.
I wish I could manifest Shrew more often.
Me too.
Yeah, so we have a question here in the chat. And I see Kathleen already answered. Do you do classroom visits, perhaps virtual classroom visits, given the climate right now? Kathleen
Yes.
does through her website. I'm sorry. Yeah, Kathleen does. So Jennifer and Dani, do you do classroom visits? Would you do that?
Oh, yeah, you can find it on my website, jenniferswansonbooks.com. So yeah, I'm happy to do virtual or hopefully in person, maybe next year. I don't know.
Yeah, I do virtual and in-person visits, and I put my email in there. It's just my name, Dani Schnitzlein @gmail.com. That's the best way to reach me.
Nice. That's a great opportunity for teachers and districts, I think. Dani, you mentioned, I think, doing some music in these visits. Is that something that you actually do?
Yeah, I usually open my school visits with a song. I find that's a good way to kind of break the ice and kind of like come together as a group. So do you want me to sing my new and Shrew song, or do you want to wait for later?
Ooh, I think now would be the perfect time if Jennifer and Kathleen are amenable to that. Let's go for it.
So when I did my virtual release party for New and Shrew, I wanted to do something special for New and Shrew, and I thought, well, I'll write them their own song. So when I sing for kids at schools, I don't get nervous, but I do sometimes get nervous singing for adults. So I'm just going to pretend that you are all big kids. All right. So, all right. Starts on C. Okay. The river is deep, the river is wide, and it's filled with hungry crocodiles. The current is fierce and strong and wild, but there's lots of treasure on the other side. New and Shrew, they're a little like me and you, both looking for things to do. They're hoping their dreams come true. Under the river, underground, I'll dig a tunnel that's safe and sound. We'll be richer than chocolate cake, richer than kings, for goodness sake. New and Shrew, they're a little like me and you. They're both looking for things to do. They're hoping their dreams come true. New sees diamonds in his head every night while he's in bed. But little bitty Shrew works late at night, building his boat and making it right. Everybody thinks differently. We all have different ways to see and different ways to reach our dreams, no matter how crazy they might seem. But if you keep on trying and plugging away, you can build a little boat that can handle the waves. One fine day you can take a ride, reach that treasure on the other side. New and Shrew, they're making their book debut. They have different ways to dream, but they make a pretty good team. New and Shrew, they're wearing a Reebok shoe. They're using Pantene shampoo. They're driving a Subaru. Embedded marketing. Do, do, do. New and Shrew. All right.
That was way more than I could have asked for. That was fantastic.
Probably longer than you wanted it to last. Anyway.
That was great. And again, it's the connection between the art and science that we referenced earlier. So I love that. And I think that we are getting a little short on time. So if there's anybody in the audience, I just read awesome in the chat and said it. If there's anyone in the audience that has a question for our authors, feel free to unmute yourself. You have an opportunity here to ask. And if there's not, here in a couple seconds, I'll just pass it over to Tiffany. All right. Thank you all so much. We're going to have a little message here from Booksource and from Peachtree, and then we'll take it back at the end just to have some final notes. So thank you so much. Tiffany, would you like to take it away?
Sure. That was great. My heart is so happy after hearing all of you speak, as well as Dani regaling us with a song. So thank you so much for that. That was a surprise that definitely made my whole day. All right, so I really hope that you all enjoyed learning more about our authors as well as their great titles. And I hope you're all getting new ideas on how you can implement great STEAM titles like the ones that were shared today with your students and in your schools. So there's so many great ways, as you know, to support science, literacy, and cross-curricular STEAM learning in your schools and your classrooms. And so I just want to share a little bit of the many offerings that Booksource has. We have a lot, but today I'm just going to focus on one aspect today. So let me share my screen. Okay, so in addition to just a wide variety of books and collections that we also have the NGSS boxed sets. And so this resource, which is available for grades kindergarten, first and second grade, is really designed to help support the next generation science standards, or the NGSS standards. It's another great, and you'll find out how amazingly easy way it is to support impaired literacy and science learning together. So each boxed set includes 30 nonfiction science books to help really support the NGSS learning in the classroom, as well as a booklet of instructional resources. And there's a good picture that is shown here. There's title-specific information and step-by-step lesson plans for implementation for you. So this resource, and most importantly, the instructional resource booklet, which I have a picture up here for you, it was really designed to help support educators and students with implementing this with minimal support. I mean, it's so great. So there's differentiated learning paths for students who need additional support or extension. Believe it or not, there's even a home connection, as well as opportunities for assessment, which we all know is really important to check students' understanding. Each title also has guided reading levels as well for you. So the NGSS box sets were, and I'm going to go back, I'm sorry. The NGSS box sets were something that I really wish that I had when I was in the classroom. And obviously I think they're so great, but it's okay. You don't have to take my word for it, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to select 3 winners from our participant list today to award their very own NGSS box set. So please start thinking right now about which one you might like to have in your classroom or in your school for kindergarten, first grade, or second grade. And so we will, of course, follow up with those lucky winners in the coming days so that you can choose your very own set. We also will be providing our raffle winners with a copy of each of our authors' books. So I hope that you are as excited about it as I am. Now, the titles that we've shared with you today, as well as our NGSS box sets, they represent a small sampling of our wide variety of titles and collections that we have available to you. So we know that each teacher, school, and student has their own individual needs and interests. So we really want to help support you. We'd love to continue the conversation with you to learn more about your needs, your students, and the ways that Booksource can help engage your readers and help them make connections with science and other concepts and skills. We will send a follow-up email to you with a recorded webinar, as well as the featured pairings that you're hearing about tonight, and some other great ideas that we have in our back pocket. But feel free to reach out to your local sales consultant or your literacy accounts manager. Again, we have a team here just like me, ready to help support you. And you can reach out to us at literacy@booksource.com, or just give us a call at 1-800-444-0435, and we'll help get you taken care of. So we really hope that you enjoyed spending the evening with us as much as we enjoyed spending time with you. We have so many people to thank for making this event possible. Jennifer, Kathleen, Dani, Suzanne, we obviously could not have done this without you. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your titles, to share your talents. Dani, to lend your beautiful singing voice with us tonight. It's really been a pleasure to spend time with you. We also want to thank Peachtree Publishing. We wouldn't have been able to do this without you. So thank you for sharing your authors and sharing your titles with us as well. We also have a few internal people to thank, like Mitch, who did a fantastic job of facilitating. So thank you very much for taking the reins and making sure that we had a really great night tonight, as well as our sales consultants who help support our participant list that we have today, and our internal partners here at Booksource. Again, we really appreciate you spending time with us. We hope that you enjoyed learning about STEAM titles and collections, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. To our authors here, I saw you all plugged your websites in the chat. So I encourage everyone in our audience to go check those out. We will be listing those websites along with our resource library. So with that being said, everyone, thank you so much for joining me.